Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us for this session on accelerating service ownership with PagerDuty's Service Graph. As part of this presentation, we'll be sharing with you Service Graph functionality that will be released to all customers in the next 2 quarters. As a heads up, we'll have a poll later in this presentation, so please be ready to access slido.com from your computer or phone so that we can hear your perspective. As a quick introduction to our viewers, my name is Brita Seltzer, and I'm a Senior Product Manager for PagerDuty out of our San Francisco office. And I'm joined by my brilliant colleague, Giran Moodley, who is a Senior Solutions Consultant out of our London office. Before we get into the Service Graph, let's set the foundation by talking about service ownership and why it is a critical part of any company's DevOps practices. As the pace of change accelerates and all businesses come online, DevOps helps companies accelerate and efficiently scale their digital operations while helping their teams move from manual and reactive to preventative in their incident management practices. For anyone listening that has attempted a DevOps transformation, however, you'll know that the road is not easy. In fact, Gartner predicted that in 2020, 75% of DevOps initiatives would fail, largely due to operational and cultural factors. The organizations that have successfully overcome these odds have employed a service ownership strategy, which is a culture and operating model where the people writing the code for a service actually own it in production. And companies like Cox Automotive that have been successful in implementing a service ownership strategy have seen a reduction in MTTR by over 50%. A reduction in customer downtime by over 70%, and an increase in their team's overall work productivity by over 20%. As these metrics show, service ownership isn't just about minimizing downtime, but more about efficient digital operation practices in general, so that there's less distraction, fewer fire drills, and more time spent focused on growth, customers, and innovation. So though the road is not easy, there is significant value to be had. Making any service ownership strategy successful relies on companies setting their employees up for success and equipping them with the tools that they need to effectively manage code and any issues that arise in production. Foundational to this is ensuring that there is a clear understanding of all of the services in your technical ecosystem, which teams have ultimate accountability or ownership for each service, and how those services really come together to deliver customer-facing or business capabilities. Because without these foundational service and ownership mappings, incident management becomes chaos. When responders get that page at 3 a.m., they won't have the tools to answer even the most fundamental of questions, like what's broken? What underlying piece of technical infrastructure is alerting or having an issue? And they won't be able to quickly determine who's responsible, who owns the service, and who needs to take immediate action. And lastly, what's the impact? What is the consequence on other technical services in the infrastructure or other teams? And what's the ultimate impact to the customer or the business? When questions like this can't be answered, it often results in a blunt response, a strategy that involves getting every single person in the room so that they can all figure out which services are at fault and who is responsible. A terribly costly and inefficient process. Further, when there's no transparency about what services are underperforming and which services are perhaps over-leveraged, teams will be stuck in this cycle of inefficient incident response whereby the same problems just recur and recur, making it near impossible to move from being very manual and reactive in your incident response processes to proactive and preventative, and putting your top line, bottom line, and reputation on the line as a result of these inefficient practices. I just wanted to pause for a brief moment here and take a quick poll. So if you wouldn't mind getting out your phone or logging onto your computer, and going to slido.com or scanning this QR code and answering this question about how you store your service and dependency information today? Is it in PagerDuty? Is it in a configuration management database? Is it in wiki pages, in people's heads? Maybe it isn't stored at all, or something else. I appreciate you sharing your perspective with us, and we're going to continue through this presentation, and we'll share the results in the chat in a few minutes. And what is clear is that service ownership matters more now than ever, and it will only continue to become more critical in coming years. Because as businesses scale and digital offerings become ever more complex, the technical infrastructure required to support it follows suit. Often with new business units or offerings being built on top of legacy infrastructure, or acquisitions requiring two stacks to become one, without an understanding of how the web of services really come together to combine the functionality of a given product offering, there's a risk that significant downtime when the impact of incidents span across multiple layers of infrastructure or teams, and people are really scrambling to untangle the relationships and impact during an active incident. Companies are also evolving at a rapid clip, pushing code often on a continuous cycle. Increasing change increases the chance that something goes wrong. But it also means that whereas wikis or static documentation may have been reasonable in the past, in today's environment, these types of versions just cannot scale and remain relevant over time. And lastly, organizational changes and personnel turnover are more frequent than ever, with annual turnover in the tech industry hovering around 20%. With a codified understanding of service and ownership mappings, without a codified understanding of service ownership mappings, companies run the risk of losing critical but informal tribal knowledge every single time an employee walks out the door or changes teams. These challenges are very real, and the service graph, which will be released again to all customers in the next 2 quarters, is another foundational tool PagerDuty is investing in to continue to support and accelerate our customers' service ownership journey. And the service graph really takes PagerDuty's service ownership offering to a new height, because responders are already able to use the service directory to map discrete pieces of technical infrastructure so that when that page goes off, there is no question about what underlying service is having an issue. And with teams and escalation policies, we ensure that the right people get notified immediately when there is an issue and that nothing falls between the cracks. With service dependencies and the status dashboard, teams can begin to understand the technical and customer or business-facing impact. But we recognize that in the current ecosystem, answering questions like these might still be tough, especially in cases where the DevOps responders have a very limited view of the surface infrastructure, and there's no one team that could ever reasonably understand or steward the whole digital ecosystem. And that's why we're introducing the service graph, because we believe that it can help you answer some of the most critical questions during even the most complex of incidents. And without further ado, I will turn it over to my colleague Giran to walk us through an amazing demo of the service graph.
Thank you so much, Brita. Hello everyone, my name is Giran Moodley. I'm a senior solutions consultant based out here of London, and I'm very excited to showcase our service graph in today's demo. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Let's begin by stepping into the environment of Retail Co., a large e-commerce outfit. Retail Co. is currently undergoing a large digital transformation, and one of their key initiatives is to understand the operational health of their entire business. With their environments becoming increasingly complex, they now need to map out a holistic service topology in order to see the greater view of their digital estate. To begin their mappings, they navigate to the service graph from the Services drop-down. With their most critical business service being the checkout portal, they can begin to build a service topology that supports this. From the service graph, they can easily get started simply by dragging in the checkout business service onto the canvas. Once done, they can then drag and drop the associated technical services that make up this business service. Once the services are on the canvas, they can easily create dependencies by dragging and creating relational lines between each component. These can be further extended to support more complex relationships in other parts of their environment. In the case of Retail Co., they can also take advantage of our Dependencies API and our Terraform provider to provision these dependencies at scale. Let's now move over to a live incident and see how Retail Co. makes use of the service graph effectively. Retail Co. have now mapped out their entire environment, with legacy applications synchronized against their CMDB and their newer cloud applications managed using infrastructure as code. If we filter on the Checkout business service, we can see that there is a major outage that is impacting customers on their e-commerce platform. The on-call engineer for the Checkout team, Jas, has received a PagerDuty alert, with the Inventory API experiencing a P1 issue. However, it is unclear what exactly is wrong with this service. Jas switches over to the service graph and now sees the wider context. The full scope of business and customer impact is visible from the degraded Checkout service. This is actively impacting users on both the website and mobile app. There is no question that this is truly a P1 issue and requires immediate attention. Jas can also see that there are additional services also experiencing issues, and that her issue is not just isolated to her team's services. In fact, we can clearly see that the Inventory API is also affecting the Shipping API and Orders API based on the dependency relationships. On further triage, it appears that the MongoDB service owned by the database team may be the root cause of these failures. By clicking on the MongoDB service, Jas can see the recent incidents open against this service and that Jose is currently on call for this. Jas quickly reaches out to Jose and receives an update that he is proactively working on a fix. Jose confirms that his issue is likely causing the other issues that Jas is experiencing on her team's services, and that he was unaware that she was being impacted. Since the fix is expected to be deployed within a couple of minutes, Jas sits tight and sees all of her incidents auto-resolve when things return to normal 10 minutes later. With the service graph, it doesn't matter if an issue is impacting one or many teams. It quickly gives users a bird's-eye view of the state of the service topology, providing transparency of issues across the platform, and facilitates collaboration for effective incident response and resolution. On behalf of PagerDuty and myself, thank you very much for watching. Take care, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Giran, for that incredible demo. So as you've just seen, the graph enabled the responder, Jas, to understand at a glance her services as well as how they contribute to the broader customer-facing or business capabilities. The service graph is a living, breathing asset that codifies technical and business service relationships across the organization, an asset that lives on through personnel changes and easily adapts as complexity grows or changes are made, ultimately democratizing knowledge across all members of your organization. And this org-wide transparency empowers members to identify and seamlessly close gaps in the relationships that they own, not waiting for administrators or laborious operational processes to be done to update the service graph, but instead giving Jas and the teams that own and are responsible for each service in production the power to also own and manage their service relationships in the service graph, helping to keep it up to date as services evolve. With that foundational knowledge set, responders have the tools to take incident response to new heights. It won't matter if an issue is originating 1 layer or 4 layers from your service, or if the teams you depend on or that depend on you are across the hall or across the world. Responders will be able to quickly digest the full impact radius of an issue, zero in on probable cause, and seamlessly facilitate cross-team collaboration. What is more, with an eagle-eye view, teams can understand when the services they own are over-leveraged or at risk of being a single point of failure, highlighting a potential need for investment that can be undertaken outside of the incident management cycle to ensure stability, scalability, and reliability of your company's digital operations. And this is really just the beginning for the service graph. We already have the concept of suggested dependencies, which is machine learning that identifies and suggests dependency relationships to help accelerate mapping and identify gaps as the service topology evolves over time. These suggestions can already be accessed on the incident details page and the impact tab of the service profile. And in the near term, we'll be layering on this intelligence to the service graph. We're also going to be delivering new machine learning around probable origin and change correlation, leveraging prior patterns of incident occurrence to identify and highlight probable origin points or possible corollary changes for major incidents within the service graph itself. And lastly, we're incredibly excited about our acquisition of Rundeck and the incredible opportunities to initiate automation workflows directly from the service graph, providing a central hub not only to diagnose issues, but really to take resolution actions. We are so excited about the service graph and think that it has incredible opportunity to help companies establish and maintain their service ownership mappings over time and ultimately streamline incident management processes. And thank you all so much for your time and attention today. To wrap up this presentation, I just wanted to share that we are excited to begin releasing the service functionality to early access customers in July of 2021. If you're interested in being part of our early access, please visit pagerduty.com/early access to submit your information. You can also stay tuned by looking at the in-product What's New updates in the top navigation bar, or by reading our monthly product update emails where we will be sharing more information about this release. Thank you again so much for your time, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.